Welcome back to GameForBrains. We're playing Arkham Asylum.
So this is Mark Hamill,
Yeah,
and Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy from the
animated series.
Yeah.
Do we know who Gordon is? Is he somebody famous?
Not in this one, no.
Is he famous in other
let's
ones?
fall into the trap. Yeah, in Arkham Knight, it's the Mike from Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be a good Gordon in general.
Yeah, so would Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston would be a great Gordon.
Said that a lot.
He played Gordon in
one of the in the animated things.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember if I had the idea that he would be a good Gordon before that or because of that.
Probably before.
Why don't you
DC probably read your emails.
just emailing everyone? Bryan Cranston should play Jim Gordon.
DC's like, oh, this guy in Ireland's got some good ideas.
That came out before I went to Ireland.
Oh.
Because I watched it before I went there. Oh.
So I'm really into the aesthetics of the whole Arkham thing.
Yeah, it looks great.
Like, I think so.
So I mean, you can see like there's like tiles that you would see on a hospital. But
Yeah.
Also, and there's like markers on the floor that kind of give you directions to different parts of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
But they also serve in game as directions on where to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the grunge, like the industrial, hellhole type thing.
Yeah.
The reason that's cool is because I think Batman makes the most sense when he's in an environment that represents chaos or depravity or something.
Yeah.
And so doing the whole Arkham Island thing, even though I don't think that makes sense as a city planner standpoint. Like, let's put all of our crazy people on an isolated island, so if anything goes wrong, it's impossible to solve.
Okay, so I mean, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, in the Arkham Knight, you get the entire city, and it's made up of a bunch of tiny islands,
right?
Which is not how it is in the comics or in anything else.
No.
It kind of is like that in the comics, but it's kind of like
Manhattan,
how there's like
boroughs,
or New York City, like there's different boroughs and different islands, but that's how they had it in the comics. So there's bridges everywhere. Which is why they filmed in Pittsburgh for Dark Knight Rises. Because Pittsburgh has a lot of great bridges.
Right.
But then,
well, if you aren't isolated by bridges, then there's no way for the government to abandon you when things go really bad.
Exactly. That's the purpose. And so, but then in the video game, they just like shrunk the islands down and made the bridges like really long. So like different things can happen on different islands, which makes sense. It makes sense for the video game. But yeah, you're right. It's
Zsasz.
Oh yeah. Here's Zsasz is such a cool villain. I kind of wish he would show up in like on Law and Order or something. He'd be a great like serial killer villain for a procedural show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, which is why I think Zsasz. So Zsasz kind of represents, in my brain, this isn't an academic thing,
right?
And I could be wrong, but in my brain, he represents, like, when I was reading comic books when I was younger in the 90s, in the 80s and the 90s, there was more of a push in Batman land to make the villains reflect more of what people were actually afraid of in the 80s and the 90s. So you had a lot more, like, drug dealers, thugs, gangsters, the Frank Miller stuff. And so Zsasz kind of fits into that he's just kind of this psychopath that makes a mark on his skin when he kills somebody, because someone theoretically could actually do that and be a scary villain, whereas in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, Batman villains were basically Dick Tracy villains with like big faces, you know. And so that's why I have like a special place in my heart for Zsasz, because I remember when I saw him pop up in Batman Begins, it was kind of like this wink and this nod to Batman fans seeing the movie that we're not doing the Tim Burton thing. Yeah, this takes place. In,
so let's talk about what's happening here, because this is the detective mode.
This is important. This is skeletons.
Yeah. So he does this so that he can sneak around and hide in the shadows and still see things, and that's how he took out.
And their bones glow in the dark.
Mm-hmm. The bones don't glow in the dark.
So is this an infrared thing?
It's an infrared, but he's got it programmed to color code based on who's good guys and who's bad
by their bones.
And later,
because bad guys have just like a marrow that glows.
And when someone has a gun, they'll be red. They'll have a red skeleton. Because he's he's the world's greatest detective.
He's a damn tech genius. Like, you would think,
right.
we could fight terrorism really effectively with this kind of stuff.
There's Harley.
Were
you saying that you think the new Suicide Squad Harley was based more on this than the animated series? Which is definitely true, because
she's not wearing like the red and black jumpsuit.
Yeah, which that hasn't been around.
Yeah,
that hasn't been around for a long
time. Well, actually, I think this is kind of what took away the red and black jumpsuit. This game.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I know that people get frustrated because they think this is a much more sexualized, like, she's got all this cleavage and she's like, I'm Harley Quinn. But I don't know. I think that I'm excited for Margot Robbie's thing. I don't think it looks like it's. I think that David Ayer is clearly taking, like I mentioned earlier, the aesthetics for Suicide Squad, even more so than Batman vs. Superman, look like exactly like this.
Yeah.
It's grungy and it's urban and, makeup is smeared everywhere.
But it also gives you a lot of room to kind of, you can go hyper-realistic or you can be a little out there.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the Nolan universe, a character like Harley Quinn would be kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
And like especially, even Killer Croc would...
Yeah, Killer Croc wouldn't make any sense.
But in Suicide Squad, like, you could do either, and you could still have a very realistic setting.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how they handle Harley, because I was telling you earlier that I'm really enjoying Amy Chu's Poison Ivy that she's got going on right now. And Harley Quinn is in that, and one of the things I really like about it is that both Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, Amy Chu makes constant references to the fact that they're like doctors with PhDs.
Right.
And so there's this moment when Harley Quinn busts into a room and somebody's like, you can't be in here. And she's like, shut up, I have a PhD.
Right.
And she also makes like all these references to psychology because Harley Quinn is a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And so I really like that like Harley Quinn is like crazy, but she's also not just like this stupid floozy.
Right.
That even though the cartoon version is very definitive and that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
You don't ever get the sense in the cartoon that like, oh, she used to be a psychiatrist. Like she's just kind of a zany side character. Whereas the Amy Chu thing, I like how they're acknowledging that Harley Quinn's insanity is coming from somewhere other than just a kooky personality, but that she's actually a very smart person. So I hope that translates into Suicide Squad. I hope that Margot Robbie doesn't just make her kind of
and from the trailers, I mean, there hasn't been a lot revealed as far as how they're dealing with the story of like her character so much and the Joker. But it looks like there's been hints that there's like a lot going on between them, which that I am looking forward to that.
Me too. Poor police officer.
So this is where Batman has to do some...
Oh, crap.
You can't fall into the gas.
Oh. You just killed Batman.
He'll die of poison. No, he doesn't die. Fine. He just climbs back up.
Yeah.
That's convenient.
So we were discussing how the wiring in Arkham Asylum seems to be perfectly suited for batarangs.
Just conveniently.
Yeah, if you need to get a fan start, because the fans need to be turned on. They're not. They don't even. Nothing is being shut off in this sequence. It's just you have to turn off the fans by hitting an electrical box with a batarang.
Right.
Which I don't know any other.
Which, either... So you've got two things going. Either Batman was really smart and he, like, investigated the technology of Arkham and was like, in case I ever need to turn these fans on...
It'll be really convenient if I can just hit it with a metal spinny thing in the shape of a bat.
Boom!
There's those bats fly out of his ears.
Yeah, because he's got to save him. He doesn't want him to die, but also they can't be running around, so he's got to knock him out. And, it'd be nice if he, like, dropped, like, a couple of aspirin.
Right.
He's like...
He drops some aspirin.
Yeah, it should.
A well-aimed batarang.
And it did.
Always does the job. You know what this... Just looking at that air vent reminds me of the what's the name of the museum in Burton's Batman 89?
The museum?
The art museum. It has like I feel embarrassed that I can't remember the name of it, but it's like it's a museum. It's the one that they go to and the Joker shows up and gasses everybody. And the architecture, the whole art direction of this thing just reminds me so much of that, of like the...
It goes back to...
Is it Guggenheim, or is that a real museum? I'm getting like my Batman and my real world...
Was it not filmed in a real museum?
I don't know if it was, but I know that there's a name... The museum has a specific name in the movie, and it's something that I know and I can't think of.
Well, if it's not a real one, it's not the Guggenheim, because that is a real museum. But you were talking earlier about the inspiration for the Batman 89 movie. Not the inspiration, but the art direction for Gotham City.
Yeah. Well, and I see that they're obviously pulling from that. And the reason I think it's so effective is because it has this timeless quality of looking simultaneously like they're pulling from the past and they're projecting for the future to create this like really bonkers...
It's called the Flugelheim.
Flugelheim, that's why. The Flugelheim Museum.
Yeah.
In Gotham City.
Okay.
Is the most depressing art museum you've ever seen. And this reminds me of that whole artistic aesthetic. And I remember reading Anton Furst, who I've told you before I think is the real genius of the first Batman movie.
Yes.
Anton Furst, the art director, he basically said he wanted to create a city that looked like none of the architecture made sense.
Right.
And so he would look at like an architecture style and build half of a building in that style and then build the upper half in a completely different style, so there was no continuity. And he basically said Gotham City had no city planning, and nobody knew what they were doing.
I mean, which makes sense now that for an asylum to be on an island,
right? And so it's cool that they can capture that and have it make sense to you. That you're like, oh, this is like old Gotham or something where things are just crazy. So they just put an asylum there. Yeah. And
then we get to later when we get to Arkham City, I think you'll even appreciate it even more because I think Anton Furst's influence is much more apparent.
Well, because I wouldn't say it's a critique I have of the Nolan films, because it doesn't bother me, and I really enjoyed it while it was happening.
Yeah.
But something that I miss is Batman existing in a universe that is more of a funhouse mirror reflection of reality than... Because, in The Dark Knight, Gotham City is Chicago. It just looks like Chicago.
Right. And that's because Nolan's making crime films more than he's making Batman films. Yeah. And... if you're going to make a crime film, Chicago is a great place to do it. Yeah. However, if you're doing something like what the Arkham games are trying to do, that's much more invested in the Batman mythos, ditching the Chicago style is probably going to be the way to go because it's the fact that Gotham is really old, so that it's got to be.
Did he just have a heart attack?
Yeah, he just dropped dead because he needs stronger test subjects. But to have a city that obviously is in New England and has like a colonial foundation is really important because Gotham is as much about the ghosts that haunt Gotham, whether that is by inequality or families that have too much power, which that kind of comes up a lot in Snyder's.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that. I think Snyder's better at writing Gotham City than he is at writing Batman.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne and Snyder's thing, I'm always kind of like, but Gotham City he set up like a perfect Gotham City world. Yeah, yeah. And that's why it's kind of a bummer that they're going to like reboot again in the summer because, what then?
Well, because I think a lot of people recognize it, and you could always take elements of that and put it into something else. Yeah. So did we talk about what you just fought there?
Was that a big
guy?
Big goofy angry man?
Let's save that.
Something.
Oh yeah. Let's do this upgrade thing and then.
I don't know what.
Okay, so for the you just upgraded to a special combo throw. You get experience points, which give you more things to unlock. Okay. And you can get more things, basically. That's how it works. Yeah.
Hooray.
Cool. All right, well, let's... we can talk about the Titan thing on the next episode. Well, that thing you just fought.
He looks like a lopsided Doomsday with elephantitis.
Yeah. That's not what he is, though.
GameForBrains.